Test, 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 test.
Good. Hopefully, yeah. I've done it. But I was like, oh, this is mostly IGSA stuff. And John is he here? Oh, John, I don't see John. He is so good about breaking down the detail with IGSA because it's such a big, big deal. Good evening. I am calling to order the March 10th, 2026 Fountain City Council meeting. Legion, would you please lead us in our flag salute tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Geek.
Here.
Councilmember Rick.
Here.
Councilmember Hertzberg.
Here.
Councilmember Ruffinock.
Here.
I have 7 members present.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask that you all join me before we continue in our meeting for a moment of silence and recognition of our soldiers that have been lost in the last week or so, and then I'll read a brief statement. So we'll take about a 30-second remembrance. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to pause briefly to honor a Fort Carson soldier who died on Sunday, as well as several others who have died in the line of duty in recent days. Sergeant Benjamin N. Pennington, 26, of Glendale, Kentucky, died on March 8, 2026 from injuries sustained during an enemy attack on March 1, 2026 at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. He was there in support of Operation Epic Fury. Sergeant Pennington was assigned to the 1st Space Battalion, 1st Space Brigade at Fort Carson. He was posthumously promoted to Staff Sergeant. Thank you for your moment of silence for all of them. We also ask that you keep the Fort Carson community, as well as all of our American service members and civilians, in your thoughts as this conflict overseas continues. And I'm sure American Legion and VFW, if there's anything we can do to assist, you'll be letting us know. Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. Okay, that takes us to public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. I have 2 cards, and first one I have is from John Langley, American Legion. He's going to tell us about fried chicken. That's what he always tells us about, right?
You got that. That's the first thing on the list. Madam Mayor and Council, just to tell you a few things that the Legion has going on in the next few weeks. Of course, the mayor hit it with the fried chicken this Friday. On Saturday, we're going to have a corned beef and cabbage special. We're going to be doing St. Patrick's Day party during that day so that everybody can be at work on time when it's supposed to be done. The following Friday on the 20th, our riders are going to be doing a steak dinner. And then on April the 3rd, I'm going to be cooking a fish fry. So it's going to be a Good Friday fish fry. And then on April the 4th, our auxiliary is doing an Easter egg hunt. So children up to the age of 12 will be able to go out at the Legion and go hunt some eggs. We have recently donated a little bit over $1,000 to the Children's Well-Being Foundation. And then we have a young lady that her father is a member of the Legion, and she's a member of the Fountain Fort Carson High School JROTC. Well, she qualified to go to the World Shooting Championships for juniors, and that's going to be in Cairo, Egypt. And so she was doing a fundraiser, so we've been able to donate to her about $2,500, a little bit more, I think, to help, because they don't pay for them to go fly there, and they don't pay for them for the hotels, and so we're trying to take a little bit of that burden off of the family by doing that. And then we also have applications for our Girls and Boys State. If you don't know what that is, that's a civic program, and what they do is they learn about government. So people from all over the state of Colorado meet up at, I can't remember the college, but where? northeastern Colorado. But what they do is they learn about city government. So they start off as city government. And so they have to make resolutions and things like that. And then once they do that, then they move into the state government. And then the two people that get elected as the two state senators, they then get to go to Boise State Nation, which is in Washington, D.C., and they get to go on Capitol Hill and meet senators and House representatives and things like that. So something really, really good. And it's one of those things that the service academies look highly upon for their application when they're applying for it. And other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening, unless y'all have any questions.
Thank you very much. I think a couple years ago I came when the kids gave their speeches after they had won, and they were pretty amazing, so thank you. All right, the second card I have is from Ms. Fran Carrick, so if you could please come down and state your name for the record.
I'm Fran Carrick. We're all here about the water tonight, and mine is sort of related to that. I have a grandson, 22 years old, born and raised right here in Colorado, Fountain, Colorado, actually. When his folks brought him home from the hospital, they delivered him to the house over on Kiowa Street. He was a proud Jordahl Bobcat, and he went on to become a proud Fountain Fort Carson Trojan. My plan for him was to be a plumber like his dad and his grandpa. And a year after school, he came to me and he said, I want to join the Navy. And I didn't want him to. And I remember we sat out on the patio for quite a while. And I said, Chase, why do you have to do this? And he said, I just want to protect you, Nana. And I knew that there was no changing his mind. It was his calling. So he joined the Navy. He tested to be a nuclear submarine technician. We were so proud of him. And he said, well, I'm not doing that. And he's a big kid. He's 6 foot. And so he worked with the Navy. He said, I want to be in the Navy, but I don't want to do that. So he was in Connecticut for the specialized training for the submarine. And then they asked him, well, what would you like to do? And he said, I think I'd like to be a Master of Arms, which is like an MP in the Army, which is what I know because my dad was Army. So he was stationed in San Diego on the USS Abraham Lincoln. And he called and told us that he was being deployed on November 22nd, and he was going to Thailand, and they thought they might go to Guam, and we were excited for him because he told me that he wanted to see the world. And I thought, well, that's a great way to do it. We got up one morning and heard that he had been redirected by our commander-in-chief to the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. I've been sending him packages every 2 weeks. I've sent him 22 pairs of shorts, 20 pairs of socks. He wants protein, so he gets jerky, and I was just out of ideas what to send to him, and it's time for another package, and I thought, I'm going to city council, and this boy, I would like to have a card from everyone in this room wishing him well. for his return. Now, he is our only grandchild. But when he comes back, we're going to have a big barbecue. And everyone in this room is invited. And I may not remember you, but you'll remember me, I hope. And we have lots of room out there, so we'll be able to accommodate everyone. But I have a card, and I'm not very good at drawing. It's a watercolor card, and I've written all the things on the front that he's grown up doing: Ohio Street, City Hall, some of his friends, his dog. If I could get everyone to sign it, and then I'm going to put it in the box, and I'll mail it to him this weekend. So,
Yeah, if you could just give it to Joni, and then
Yep.
at the end of the meeting, we can all sign it.
will do.
And then she'll get it back to you. Joni, if somebody in the audience or listening realm would like to bring a card, can you collect them at the office and then call Fran if there's any dropped off? Okay. All righty. Thank you for coming in. I have a family member that served several years ago on the Abraham Lincoln, and so a little connection there. So, and he was there during the previous Gulf War. My cousin was on there during the previous Gulf War. Yes, it is. Yep, yeah. All right, thank you very much. All right, good reminder, close to home. All right, that takes us on to item 5.1, presentations. There are none tonight. Item 5.2, board, commission, and committees. There are no appointments tonight. Item 6, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Mr. Trainer. Mr. Trainer, not here. Mr. T. Evans at fountaincolorado.org. I gotta get it in once, right? Yes. Anybody down the row? Y'all are gonna wait till your official times? Chief, you're not on the menu, the agenda.
I apologize, we're joking
Yeah.
back here. I just want to let everybody know I had the distinct honor on yesterday afternoon to speak over at the Scholars Luncheon at the high school. I just want to say that our community's in great hands. There's 250 kids over there with 4.0 or higher, and just a great crowd. It was my honor to go speak and spend some time with them and their families and service members that were there as well. So it was just a good time. I just want to let everybody know that I was over there doing that. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that. Okay, takes us to the back row. Anybody in the back row? Nope. Okay, city clerk's office?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, IT?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilmember Hertzberg, anything tonight? No, Councilmember Verhoff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to go ahead and make the announcement for the El Paso County VA Claims Clinic that's going to be held at the Police Department on the 19th from 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the 19th of March. So
right,
if
thank
you
you.
need to make your claim, go ahead and make it.
Councilmember Geek?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I got to attend the employees luncheon sponsored by the CARES Committee. And it was very evident that all of our city departments have a high regard for their employees, and that all the departments have a high regard for each other. It was just a pleasure to see that camaraderie. The other thing is I went to a chamber event where Mr. Evans spoke on Friday. He did a great job, made us proud city council members. It was a good job. Yep.
Thank you. Councilmember Rick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Want to remind everyone that this is Women's History Month. I want to thank Bart for recognizing some of the women that are serving here in our city government. And I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the women on this council who give up their time and volunteer to help make this city a better place. So for all the ladies up here, thank you for what you do. I want to thank Chamber of Commerce and Dan for getting the Welcome to Fountain sign refurbished and moved. It's down by the Fountain Creek Regional Park. They put it in a great place. It's very visible, so do appreciate that. I did attend a promotion ceremony at the fire department this week. Thanks to all of the firefighters who were recognized and promoted there. And reminder, because of spring break, our council meeting will be next week, not in 2 weeks. So we will be meeting next Tuesday, not 2 Tuesdays from now. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Raffenach?
I was also at the high school yesterday, not in attendance at the superintendent's luncheon, but I got to see all the kids get ready and excited and return, and the excitement they had in being recognized for excellence in the community was amazing, and thank you for the words and the sharing of your time with them, because it was noticed. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Estes?
I don't have anything this evening.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to jump on with Councilmember Rick on Women's History Month. Fountain has a unique place in Women's History Month. We had one of the first women mayors in Colorado here, in Wandine Kane. We also have another famous resident here that passed away a few years ago, in Ardith Bruce, who is recognized in the Rodeo Hall of Fame. And so be proud of the women that have helped this community.
All right, thank you. So we had the first of what we hope will become quarterly pop-up town hall meetings. Doesn't matter if you have one person come or 20 people come. Got good input from some of the citizens. We'll be doing that around at different businesses around town. WT Military Cuts opened up her business for us to come hang out for an hour or so, and got a really good questions and got them back to staff, and those people will get answers to their questions. The library put on a great event last Saturday, and I want to thank them for that. They started kind of kicking off the 250, 150 in the area, and man, they probably had a couple hundred people come through in 2 hours to the library to see what's going on. A lot of people said, I've never been to Fountain. I came all the way down here just for the library event, so we helped them figure out some fun stuff. And Bart was sitting there signing people up for our newsletter as fast as his little fingers could type because they were lining up. And so we probably got 25, 30 people signed up for the newsletter. So it's great to see events starting for the spring and get out in the community and get out amongst everybody. That's what it's all about. All right, that takes us on to item 7, consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. Consent agenda, we have one item, item 7A, approval of the February 24th City Council minutes. What would council like to do with that? Councilmember Hersberg.
Move to approve the consent.
Okay. Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
I'm missing one vote. If you could just check here.
Oh. Do we have Jennifer set up for tonight?
She was added back into the meeting. I'll just do a verbal. We can keep going, and I'll work on that.
Her screen is stuck.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Okay.
Councilmember Hersberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have 7 yes, motion carried.
Try turning it on and off a couple of times and see if that helps. Okay. All righty. All right, that takes us on to item 8A, old business. A, Resolution 25-061, a resolution authorizing and approving the Venatucci water rights lease between the City of Fountain and the Security Water District. Mr. Murphy.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members of council and the public. My name is Taylor Murphy. I am the Water Resources and Engineering Manager for the city's Utilities Department. Tonight, we are bringing before you a lease. This was first brought in December of last year for consideration. At that time, it was tabled for a few months while we worked out some internal policies and procedures. That is what led to the numerous votes that we've brought before you at the previous council meetings. I expect you're probably tired of hearing from me, and I'm very happy to share with you this is the last item on this whole long saga of water rights. So thank you for your patience.
Every week you can come back with, okay? All right.
So just to give some high-level overview of what it is we're talking about tonight, I'll just give a quick recap of some information we shared back in December. We are looking at water that is associated with the Venatucci wells. These are the historic wells that fed the Venatucci farm. They are clustered around Main Street and Highway 85-87. The wells are currently dictated by a series of leases and subleases spanning mid-2000s to 2012. That's the current operating agreement that the three parties work under who share the water. Those are shown in the bottom right of the screen. That water is shared between the City of Fountain, the Security Water District, and the Widefield Water and Sanitation District. And under the current scheme right now, Fountain is really a minority partner. We use about 10% of that water. It works out to about 135 acre feet per year, which is only a little under 5% of our total annual water use. Really, because it's so small right now, we selectively use that water during the summer just to help kind of shave off any peak demands. And it lasts us about 3 months at the rate that we take it, and then it's fully exhausted. So it's a very small component of our water rights portfolio currently, or our water supply portfolio. So to start getting into how this water actually functions, it is leased from the foundation that owns the Venatucci farm. They still own all of the water and the assets there. We simply lease the water from the farm as the partners. That water is leased on what's called a take or pay basis. That means that we all pay upfront at the start of every year for the full amount of water that we have on paper. That is regardless of whether we're going to use that water, some or all of it, we pay upfront, so it's really in our best interest to use the full amount since we've already paid for it. As far as operations, the wells and all of the equipment and hardware associated with them are operated by Security Water District's operations staff. They simply bill us for their time and expenses as part of the operation and maintenance for the whole system. The water from those wells is pumped to a central point, and from there it is sent to Security's treatment plant. This is the PFAS removal plant that was built by the Air Force in partnership with all of the Fountain Valley communities. The water is treated there in the same way that our groundwater here in Fountain gets treated at our Aga Park plant. From there, the water goes through Security's drinking water system, and it is delivered to Fountain and Widefield at various points of interconnection where our systems link together. There are meters there that just measure how much water is transferred to make sure we stay within our allocations. From there, Fountain takes our Venatucci water. We run it through a pump station we have on Rice Lane, and that sends it out to the rest of our system in Fountain. So really just want to highlight why Fountain is excited about this lease, why it's in a great benefit to us and in our interest to enter into this lease. Really the high key point of this is that of the various water supply options we're looking at for future water, this one is the cheapest and simplest for Fountain. We already have all of the pipes and infrastructure necessary to take this water. We don't have to build any new interconnects. We don't have to install any new meters. Everything is already piped because we already take water through this whole system. That means there's no construction needed. We can turn it on the day this lease is signed and start taking that full amount. We don't have to go build any pipes or pumps or anything like that. Because of those factors, it's also a very cheap source of water for us in our overall water supply portfolio. It's really comparable to our local groundwater from our wells. And the other side of that coin really is that all the other supply options that we are currently evaluating and looking at for future supplies are very large, costly, expansive projects. They will have years of permitting and design. They will have significant capital costs. But again, this is really just a true windfall for Fountain because it is ready today and it has a really nominal cost for what we are getting. So to get into the actual specifics of the lease, it started about a year ago around this time when we were approached by Security, who was aware of Fountain's previous water constraints, and they indicated to us that they didn't feel that they needed all of the water they were entitled to under the current Venatucci lease. Their system really is kind of confined. It doesn't have too much room for expansion or adding new territories. They have a healthy and robust water supply portfolio. They had done some master planning and determined that they had some excess water that they were willing to part with to really help out Fountain. This all came about because of a great and positive peer relationship that our utility has with our neighboring utilities. It's really kind of a testament to how closely we work together and partner down here in the Fountain Valley. So this lease, unlike the previous leases with Venatucci Water, is a two-party lease. It only entails the City of Fountain and the Security Water District. Widefield is not a party to this lease, and we've taken extra steps to ensure that Widefield's water and their rights under the original lease are not altered or impacted in any way through this. This lease has a 50-year term. It will go through 2076. At that point, there are options and clauses to extend the lease even further beyond that, depending on what the water situation is at that time. This lease really steps into the full amount over the first few years. So we will take a small amount of water initially in 2026. In 2028, we will step that up. And in 2030, we will work into the full amount of the lease. And that is really because Fountain is assuming Security's take or pay basis. We are going to pay an increased sum at the start of every year for the water. The demand for that water takes a while to build out. If we have a project come in seeking to use that water today, it may be built, if it's a really aggressive project, in 18 months, perhaps 2 years, depending on what that scale is. So we do not need extra water starting tomorrow. We will grow into that, and we did not want to start paying the full cost up front. We did not want to start paying the full cost up front. We really wanted to grow into it as our need grew, and Security was receptive to that. So it's a stepped-in lease. However, if something changes to where we need that water sooner than the lease provides for, there are provisions in there where we can trigger those advanced steps sooner than what is written. With that take or pay basis, that is really Fountain's true cost. We are not paying an extra surcharge or any added fee to Security. We are taking a liability off their hands because they may not need or use that water, but they have to pay for it every year. So now they can really hand that over, and Fountain assumes that payment. It helps Security save on costs, and Fountain gets water at basically the true cost, which is really beneficial to us. In addition to those costs, we have some minor infrastructure paybacks that will be owed to Security. They paid for parts of infrastructure at their 45% basis. They're not going to be using 45% of the water, so it's only fair that Fountain takes over some of that infrastructure cost and minor component. Additionally, because we'll be taking more water, we'll pay a larger percent of the O&M for the system. We will also have some added power bills because we'll be running our pumps more now that there is more water to run. We're not just doing the 3 months in the summer. We're trying to get to 5 full months of heavy summer usage most of the time. And additionally, we've identified some minor infrastructure pump upgrades we need to make on our end by that 2030 deadline when we take the full amount, just to ensure that our pumps can run flat out for the amounts that we need constantly. Those are pretty minor upgrades to cooling and some electronics. So really, to end with, want to talk kind of the bottom line, because everything we do in water really circles around what is the fund impact for the water fund. Everything we do has a sharp eye on the finances, just given the state of the city's water fund. So as we stand today, right now, we spend approximately $3.3 million per year on what we call source of supply costs. Those are really the firm fixed costs we have to pay to get physical wet water treated and into our pipes. That's things like the Fountain Valley Authority pipeline, the Southern Delivery System. That's paying for storage that we have in Pueblo Reservoir. It's paying for different irrigation ditch water rights and a whole variety of things. These are really fixed costs that we don't have much flexibility on. We need to pay them if we want water. So on top of that current cost, the estimate starting this year, when we trigger the first year of the lease, is about a $40,000 increase to take that initial increment of water. As we step into the full lease by 2030, we anticipate that those costs will run about $190,000 in added annual costs for the full amount. That is inclusive of the added O&M, the added power bills, and everything else incidental to that. So that is really the bottom line impact of what the cost for this water is. And it's important to note that this water really helps us increase our system capacity by roughly 20% with the amount of taps that we are bringing online to enable new growth and development. So it is really effective supply water for the cost that we are paying. With that, I will open it up to any questions or comments and then bring it back to council for a vote on this resolution.
Thank you very much. You do great presentations as usual, so thank you. Are there any questions or comments from any council members up here? Councilmember Rick.
Thank you, Taylor. Excellent presentation. Just want to make sure Security Water is going to treat this, and they are going to meet all of the EPA standards for PFOS and PFOA and for particulate contamination. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. This water comes through their drinking water system, so this water comes through the same pipes their customers would pull water from, and as a regulated utility, they do meet all national primary drinking water standards, including for PFOS.
Okay. So to you and Dan, thank you for this. This is excellent bang for our buck. We're getting something at a good cost that is going to help us grow now and in the future. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
If I may, I just want to say it's worth restating, this is really a great deal because security is such a close partner with us. They knew of our need, and they found a way to make this work, knowing how vital this was to Fountain. But this is really just a testament to how well security works with us and their willingness to assist us.
This and that relationship goes back many, many years when Congressman Lamborn got us into the Pentagon. Mr. Trills, did you go with that? Believe you did. We asked if we could invite security in Whitefield to go with us because they were all in the same boat, and so everybody could be working on this together. So hang together, right?
Yep.
All right, anybody, other council members? All right, seeing none, I'm going to turn it out to the audience. If there's anyone in the audience that has any questions, please come down to the microphone, push the middle button, turn it on, state your name for the record, and your questions or comments. Please come down to the microphone right down here in the center. And it's the middle button there. And please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name's Kelly Kretich. Getting all this water and new water and stuff, does that mean that then for growth that you're going to allow for more housing projects?
Yes, sir.
And where are these housing projects going to be? Is it out Link Road?
We do not dictate that. Really, this water is available anywhere in our system where a developer would come in and meet all applicable requirements that the city has for new growth.
But we are dividing the taps up. Do you or Dan want to kind of explain that real quick?
Sure. So the meetings prior to this one, we did a lot of the groundwork to make sure we had some policies in place to really kind of guide how this water is going to be used. So with that, we created some policies where when we bring on new water such as this, 50% of that water gets earmarked and allocated for residential purposes, new housing projects, basically. So with this water, that would equal about 1,000 rooftops worth of new homes that this water will enable.
So 1,000 taps.
Yes, for residential.
That's not all of it, though. That's just part of it. So
And then 30% we allocated towards commercial projects to ensure that we have some nice balanced mix of residential and commercial. We don't just want to add rooftops but no jobs or tax base, and vice versa. We don't want to just add businesses but nowhere for workers to live. So 50% will go towards residential, 30% towards commercial projects, and then we've parked 20% of that water really into a restricted fund that council can use for projects that they feel have a public benefit that could use water.
All right, let me think about that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else? Go, and if you could turn it off and then turn it back on so that your time starts.
Frank Carrick, I did have a phone call today wondering how our infrastructure is going to take care of these 1,000 homes that are coming in. Have we planned for that? Traffic signals, stop signs, roundabouts, whatever. So that was this citizen's concern.
Mr. Evans?
Fran, we'll take a look at where these taps end up being in the development map that we've got. And each of those criteria and those concerns will be taken care of based off of that individual development. When you look at the overall requests that we've gotten through the years, 1,000 more taps really isn't a huge request based if we compare them to the others that we've got. So depending on where they would fall, we'll make sure that the developers have to take care of those offsite concerns.
Councilmember Rick?
Todd, we've already zoned and tentatively approved approximately how many houses here in Fountain in areas that are not yet developed?
So the zoning and the parcels that have already been annexed, if we added all of those up, we would have it depends. If you include Cane Ranch by itself would be another 9,000 homes. And then everything that's inside the city, we've got about 3,500 that are in process right now. Outside of that, we would probably have approximately about 5,000 to 6,000 that are just annexed and would be considered infill projects inside the city.
Okay, so we've got when you ask about the infrastructure and where would they go, you're talking 5,000 to 15,000, depending upon where they are, that they would want to go.
Yes.
But we're only going to have about 1,000. So we, at this time, the city, don't know exactly where it would go. It all depends on which developer has the money and which one wants to pay for the tap fees, the connections,
Meets all the criteria.
to develop in Fountain. So we're not trying to dodge your question. It's just when you look at it, how many have already been approved, not just by us, but by previous councils. We really don't know where it would be until they bring the money and say, yeah, we want to do it here.
Correct.
And Todd, remind me again about how many houses approximately per year?
How many are we developing out right now?
Yeah, per year.
Right now, we probably average 50 to 60 per year.
Okay. So, yeah, there's only so much lumber and so much concrete to go around, so
That's
it's
correct.
not like we're going to see 500 houses
No.
built in the next couple
No,
of years.
this will not, when you look at the overall, the growth of the city, this won't be a large amount by any means compared to what we actually have out there that's already been annexed.
Right, but it'll be slow. It's not
It
going to
will.
be like 500 houses in a couple of
No.
years, so, okay.
No.
All right, any other questions please come down and state your name, and then after you, ma'am. There you go.
George Gillum. My question is, you're getting this extra water through 2050?
76. 2076, a 50-year
Well,
lease.
obviously, all of us in this room are going to be around by then, or most of us. What happens when that lease runs out if you allow growth? Is that lease set up to continue after that?
There are options to extend based on mutual negotiations of the parties.
It'd be
and
awful to leave somebody in a predicament where we build and 2076 rolls around and there's no water.
That is our job going forward, to ensure that every time we bring on new water and do long-term future planning, we are baking in factors of safety and allocation so that if that water goes away, nobody is left high and dry.
Okay.
And remember, we do own more water. The kink in the system right now is we can't treat the water. So this will get us over, and maybe at some point, somebody 40 years down the road will have a lot of money, and they can build that treatment plant. I'm not going to worry about it at this point. So, but it's a very common way to do growth is to build your assets as you go, as you need them, not decades before you need them, and then you're paying them just to sit there. So, yeah. Okay, all good questions. And ma'am, you had a question? Go ahead and turn the mic off and on again, and then state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Michelle Tweed, and I'm running for House District 21. I'm a Colorado Springs native. I grew up in Security Whitefield and graduated in 2003. And the landscape has changed tremendously since I was a kid. When is the growth going to stop?
When we build a border, I guess, around the state of Colorado. And I don't think that's going to happen. It's just, people are going to come, and it's a beautiful place to live, and people will come here as long as they can afford it. You see people leaving from other states they can't afford to live in any longer. But actually, the population in Colorado decreased the last year, and so people are leaving Colorado because Colorado's getting too expensive for some people. Colorado Springs, in the last article I read, has overbuilt apartments.
Yes.
And I think you're going to see apartment rates starting to go down because they've kind of glutted themselves out of that market, especially the ones they have on tap. So the growth will stop when the people stop coming.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So one of my concerns is with Trump wanting to pull Space Force, what happens if we have an exodus and we have too much housing? If we keep building and building and building, what happens then?
The market will stop growing. if people are gonna not be able to afford those houses. Right now, new houses are cheaper to buy than used, I guess you would say, used houses, because the interest rates, the builders can carry such a lower interest rate than you can get from the bank. So it makes a good entry point for some people, but the market dictates what happens in the housing market, and if we get a ton of people that leave, I don't think there's going to be that many people leave from Space Force. There's a lot of other aerospace technology that is staying in the community, and I think others will come to replace Space Force that leaves. But if people leave, then the market will dictate the price of the houses. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, ma'am.
All
I
right.
appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
All right. Anyone else? Do we have any questions online? Okay. All right, going
Madam Mayor.
going for questions. Yeah, I'll bring it back up here. Gone for question. Okay, back up to the dais. Councilmember Rick.
Mr. Evans, the young lady brought up the question of when are we going to stop growing? We stopped approving houses because we ran out of water. How long has that been?
I want to say we're 3 to 4 years now. Coming up on 4 years.
So we've been without growth. We haven't been approving houses for 3 or 4 years now. This will allow us to turn it on, but only for that fixed amount of the 1,000 houses and the 600 equivalent businesses. You know, it all depends on what the business is, how much water they need. But we have stopped the growth for a while.
And to Mr. Rick and the mayor's point, a lot of the annexed pieces of property, though, they've been annexed in the city for close to 20 years, some of them over 20 years. So it's not like those develop out that quickly. And the 3,500 homes that I just mentioned, those have been in the pipeline for years and years. They've been annexed 15, 18, 20 years ago, and they're just now coming online. So we went through a very high growth period when we were getting all those requests to build out. And that is when our utilities had to say time out, you know, and be responsible to our current ratepayers. And so now you won't see the 3,500 build out. That could take them 15 to 20 years. But it's all based off of how the housing needs are out there. So the market really dictates that. We don't. Thank you.
And
You bet.
Todd, I thought you were going to say we've been through a dry period and start the puns going. But
No.
you're not going to. All right. Okay. Please come back down. We need to have you on the recording so everybody online can hear you. Press the button, ma'am. There you
Okay.
go.
I checked with Regional Building Department. Let's see, this is, we'll say the middle of March. There had only been 2 permits pulled for Fountain from January, February currently.
They're waiting on us.
And so but that's out there by us.
Yeah, and I'm
They're
surprised.
not, are they just not selling, or what's?
Yeah, there's been a market slowdown and
Okay.
economic slowdown. I just spoke with Richard Vancinas from Aspen View, which is right out by you,
Yeah.
off of Link Road. And we talked a little bit about the fire department and the new Station 4. And he feels like that they will almost totally be built out first quarter, second quarter of next year. So because they just lowered the interest rates, they expect that to pick up.
How many homes do they have out there now? Do
Total,
you know?
Christie, 225?
227 homes in that.
227?
And they're approved for about 400?
No, that'll be
No?
total build out.
That's the amount they're approved for. They don't have 227 built yet, but it will be 227 when it's fully completed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments, anybody up here? All right, what would council like to do with Resolution 25-061? Councilmember Geek.
I would like to recommend that council approve Resolution 25061.
Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote. And you can vote, huh? All right.
7 yes, motion carried.
Thank you very much. And Todd, now your phone will really start ringing, huh? All right. Okay, that takes us on to item 8B, second reading of ordinance 1819, an ordinance repealing and reordaining Title 15, Public Safety, Chapter 15.04, Fire Code of the Fountain Municipal Code, and adopting by reference the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code with appendices and amendments. Chief Graham.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see everybody this evening. Essentially asking for your final stamp of approval on updating the locally adopted fire code from the 2015 version to the 2021 version. Nothing has changed since our last meeting when we discussed this, but I would certainly sit for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions? Anyone in the audience have any questions on the item of the fire code? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back up here. What would council like to do with ordinance 1820? Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve ordinance 1819 on second reading.
Okay, Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing, oh, you were just reaching to vote. Okay, I'm sorry? Okay, so your question right now, after we had a motion on the floor, is a question about the motion. You don't have a question about the motion?
We're good.
Okay, all righty. Okay, seeing none, please vote.
Five yes, one no. Councilmember Bierhoff voting no.
Okay, that takes us on to item 9, new business. Item 9A, considerations of item removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Item 9B, first reading of ordinance 1820. An ordinance adopting the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code by reference and the Wildfire Resiliency State Code map attached hereto as Exhibit A. Chief Graham. You don't get to
Yes,
say
ma'am.
hereto very often, do you?
Well, here too. What you're asked to consider this evening with the WRC is something we discussed several months ago in a work session. It's now come time that we are under statute limitations to get this adopted. Essentially, the WRC is required to be adopted by all municipalities, fire districts, and unincorporated areas of counties that aren't included within special districts by April 1st, with an enforcement date of July 1st. Unlike the updating the fire code from the 2015 to the 2021 that council just approved, that will have very little to no implications to our current residential members within the city limits. This one, however, could potentially and likely will have implications to our residential structures within the city limits. So in a nutshell, what the statute says is any structure within the wildland urban interface, or the WUI, the W-U-I, has to meet certain structural hardening requirements and defensible space requirements, or essentially landscape requirements. This will apply to all new construction within a WUI and all remodels that meet a certain percentage of the exterior of the structure that is being remodeled or renovated. So for example, if you have a roof that needs over 25% of the roof replaced, that triggers a complete replacement of the entire roof with a material that meets fire resistive standards. Same thing with the exterior structure. If you've got siding that has to be replaced and it's 25% or greater of the exterior of the structure that requires replacement, then the entire structure will have to be resided in a fire resistive material. Essentially, the state has published a map for municipalities and districts to use. This map was generated from the Forest Service, United States Forest Service. The intention of that map was never to be used the way that the state is mandating it be used. However, they have given local jurisdictions, AHJs, the option to develop their own maps, which we're in the process of doing, because the map that the state has provided, in our opinion, Fire Marshal Kresmian's opinion, does not meet the needs of the community. So essentially that map, or our locally developed map, which we would have to bring back to you for approval and also get approval by the WRC board at the state level. They would have to approve our maps. That map dictates fire classification intensity levels. Basically, think of it like a threat level. 1, 2, and 3. They kept that part simple for us. These classification levels will dictate the fire-resistant materials that are used. It will dictate the defensible space. That map and that fire intensity classification level essentially drives all the requirements of the code. So we need to get that right. We have to get that mapping and that fire intensity classification right, because one, we want to make sure that our structures are safe, but also we don't want to put undue burden on our residents or business owners as they develop and remodel or new construction or whatever. And so there's going to be some labor and some work in developing that map. Again, we've already started that with our city GIS department, Fire Marshal's division. We're in the process of that. It is not complete. We were going to bring up the state map for you to have a view at on the big screen. It's currently not functioning as it should, so we scrapped that. There's a high-level view. We're unable to zoom in on any specific level, areas of the city. Once you go too deep into the map, the colors wash out and the classification level goes away. So we'll be developing our own fire intensity classification map. So that is the WRC in a nutshell. But there's a lot more to it, obviously. In the inspection and enforcement arena, which is where the rubber meets the road for us, we don't have all that figured out yet either. We're in the process of working on it. We've really looked into several options of models that we could potentially use for inspection and enforcement. We think that probably the best approach is going to be partnering with RBD, and every permit that they issue within the city limits of Fountain will come to us for review. That is not currently how we do it. Not every permit that is pulled in the city of Fountain has to come to the fire department for review, particularly on the residential side. All commercial occupancies, yes. Residential, not necessarily. We look at site plans and general layouts, but as far as having to review every residential plan or permit that RBD issues, we don't currently do that. So that's going to be additional workload on our fire prevention division, which is a division of two, the fire marshal and his deputy fire marshal. So not terribly excited about that. However, we know that the WRC adopted without proper inspection and enforcement is obviously completely worthless. We want to make sure we're following the statute, and we also want to make sure we're keeping our community as safe as we can within the confines of the statute. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Certainly entertain any questions. I'm sure there will be some.
Okay, so just make sure everybody understands it. There was a bill passed, Senate Bill 23-166. That means it was passed in 2023. It was passed by the Colorado General Assembly. And this bill requires each governing body with jurisdiction in an area within the wildland urban interface to adopt a code that complies with the minimum requirements. This is not something the city of Fountain is making up. So if you get hail damage and one side of your house gets damaged, 1.5 sides, right? And the regional building says you have to replace the whole house, that is not the city of Fountain wanting to do that. That is the state giving you an unfunded mandate on what you're going to do at your house. And then they're also dictating the materials that can be used. So if you have wooden siding on your house, the state's going to come through and say, this is the one you have to purchase because it does the fire stand code. The attempt is to stop these really fast-moving wildfires, right? And the frustrating thing to you as a citizen is going to be that if Chief Graham's house is in the middle of the neighborhood and my house backs up to an open space, my insurance and my replacement could be very different from what his is. He may only have to replace that quarter of his house because he doesn't back up to the open space, where I might have to do my entire house. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the insurance companies cover and say about this, and that is something we won't know till into the future. So when you hear people talking about this, and the city's making me do this, and the city's making me do that, we are enforcing the law that was shoved on us by the state. And I don't think it was a very, as he's stating, I don't think it was a very well thought out law. We saw some of the bad sides of this coming through, and we tried to fight this law. But it is what it is, and it is where we are at today, and we are required to uphold the law that the state puts on us. We will see. And the map is going to be moving always. If there's empty property next to you and it develops, you might be in the wooey one day, and then they clear that out and houses are now in front of you instead of an empty field, and so now you're out of it, and so it could change back and forth. It's going to be very fluid and, as you were saying, very difficult to accommodate, right? So if now a permit is having to come not only through regional building, but they get a flood of permits through their department after a hailstorm or a fire incident, now we're going to have a backlog and everybody's going to be mad at the city, but we're only enforcing the law that the state has pushed upon us. So I really, really hope when you're talking to people that you refer them to this Senate Bill 23-166, have them read it for themselves, and they can even go online and find out the voting record for who voted to shove this down your throats. And vote carefully in November, because some of them will be up for re-election. Okay, probably. So, council, do you have any questions for, I got two mics on here, Councilmember Verhoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually ended up going to the state capitol and actually got a full brief about this very bill a couple weeks ago. Overall, what they're trying to do is a good thing. I think the attempt is a good thing, but it will ultimately add costs to the folks that are either have some sort of repair that they need to make their house or have a brand new house that they're building. So it will add initial cost, but I think that the overall savings in the long run through reduced insurance premiums will be a good thing. But it's one of those things that it's a hard pill to swallow, at least up front. With this also, I did have some questions. Is there more detail that we have for this, Chief Graham? Because I don't see the full code here.
The way that it was worded on that was to adopt by reference. So referencing the code that's published on the website. So the entire code was not included in your packet.
I appreciate it.
Okay. And I'm going to respectfully disagree with you because I replaced a shingle roof with a metal roof and my insurance went up 30% because the replacement cost for that metal roof is higher than for a shingle roof. So, you know, I don't want to go out and tell people you may have an insurance decrease when you kind of do something and then it backfires on you. Councilmember Rick.
Can you bring back up the map with the colors on it? Chief, for those of us like me who are colorblind, I can, okay, I can see red, green, and blue.
It's a big blurry brown blob.
There's a lot of red in there. Can you explain the difference between the red, the blue, and I think it's yellow? Can you explain to us what that is?
Yes, sir. The intention of the color coding was to obviously provide a graphical representation of the fire classification threat level. I believe, and Wayne, jump in here at any point if you have a different opinion. The red was supposed to be the most severe, followed by orange, which was moderate, and then yellow, which was low. The problem with this, okay. One of the characteristics of this particular map is that as you zoom in on it, as it works right now, all the colors go away. If it's working properly, the more you zoom in, the more you can see details on those colors. So can you back out? Thank you. See that big yellow big yellow right in the middle.
Can we
When
put
you
the-
zoom in
can we
on
put the-
that,
Can we put the arrow there? Can we put the arrow where you're speaking of? There we go. Okay, thank you.
I've got a pointer too. Where the pointer is there on the screen, the yellow, if this map were functioning properly and you zoomed in on it, you would start to see different colors within that yellow mass right there. And so it's hard to give, hard to explain to certain residents right now what their classification level would be based off of this map. But the color is intended to be the low, moderate, and high intensity classification level. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir, it does. So, as I'm looking at this map, it appears to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the darker colors, the darker red, is a lot of undeveloped land that doesn't have houses on it right now. Is that correct?
That is generally correct. I would
Okay.
offer an example. One of the areas when this map was working correctly that you could zoom in and say the Jimmy Camp Creek area.
Okay.
Obviously, very heavy vegetation in there. Fuel links would be high, flame links would be high, flame spread would be substantial in there. That area was colored red. And that's probably an accurate representation from this map.
Okay.
Now, one of the rules within the WRC is the 300-foot rule, and anything within 300 foot of the structure is to be considered in the classification level. So if your house was 300 feet away from the high-intensity level and the intermediary was a moderate, your structure would be classified as a moderate rather than a high. So there is a little bit of a buffer there. There's a lot of guidelines within the code that.
So using Jimmy Camp Creek, where there's a lot of flammable material, if you're within 290 feet of the flammable material, you're on a high danger area, and you're going to probably have to spend more if you have to fix more than 25% of your house. But if you're 350 feet, probably less that you're going to have to spend on. Is that correct?
Potentially less if the intensity classification changes.
Okay. That's all I had, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
So just want to make it clear that a yes vote on this does not mean you agree with Senate Bill 23-166. A yes vote means that we have to adopt this. If we, Chief, or either one of you, if this fails tonight.
That's a good question. I think that's more of a
Take a deep
question
breath.
for the council.
But we're required, right? If
To
we don't,
consider.
if we don't produce a map, we have to use the state map, which may not be as accurate to our area.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What we're asking you to do tonight is to adopt, we're recommending adoption of the WRC with this state-provided
Right.
map. With
Okay.
the caveat that we will come back to you once our local map is developed and ask you to approve that, get that approved by the
Right.
WRC board. If council chooses to not adopt this, kind of the or what moment, looking through the WRC and all the accompanying material on the website and on the state's website, I don't really know what the or what moment is. There doesn't seem to be any punitive actions called out in the code if the jurisdictions don't adopt it. I think we could use our imaginations on how the state could probably figure out how to enact punitive on local jurisdictions.
I'm sure they could. Because, yeah, last year they tried to, if we didn't do something, they were going to stake some of our HUTF, Highway User Trust Fund monies, if we didn't do something that they liked, so.
I'm sure they could get
So I
creative.
just want to make sure our citizens completely understand. A yes vote on this does not mean that we agree with what the state has done. It just means that we sometimes up here have to act in the best interest of the city to protect the city and our citizens. whether we agree with it or not. I mean, I think y'all can figure out my thoughts, but, Councilmember Geek?
I would just like to have somebody explain, we're a home rule city, so not just for me, but for everybody else. If we're a home rule city and we make up our own rules based on our charter, why does the state get to tell us what to do, I guess, I'm asking.
They use this little magic words at the end of a bill that say they consider this a statewide interest and concern, and they can overrule your home rule authority. And they're using it more and more in the last 2 years. Now, we can take a minute and look at this bill and see if they use it on the end of that, but that's just kind of a general, generic answer for your question. Tammy, you want to look it up over SB 23-166, and we can see if they use those words on it.
Mayor, can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
That just for full clarity and transparency, this code does give the option for all local jurisdictions to adopt a code that would supersede the WRC requirements as long as the locally adopted code exceeds the requirements set forth. So we're free to, but we would have to write a more restrictive code than what they've provided here.
So we have to do this, right? But we could write something more.
We could make it worse.
Yeah, it could make it worse, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But in adopting something, we could adopt actual rules. For example, they identify coatings that need to be fire retardant, and yet no such coating yet exists on the market. I can attest to that because that is what I do. And so if you go to Pikes Peak Building or have any inspector come out, it does not exist. The material, you can go from shingle to metal, but there is no coating as specified in this law. It has yet to be invented or approved. So we could write a law because we could write a law that doesn't have imaginary things in it. I'm just saying for a friend.
Mayor, I've got one question for the chief, if I could. Chief, a lot of times the state will kind of saddle these that if we don't meet them or if we don't comply with them, that it puts our ability for state funding at risk. Is that the case in this situation? Do we know?
I haven't heard anything or read anything specifically calling that out. However, again, I think they could use their imaginations, and so could we. They'd probably get creative in ways to find.
Yeah. A lot of times the state will do
Right.
that.
So please understand, right? Yes vote is sometimes because you have to. So, all righty. Did you find it, Tamara, and see if, we'll get Councilmember Verhoff while she's looking that up?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, kind of a little bit more to what I was saying before with the state adopting a statewide fire code is really what this is they're asking for us to comply with the statewide fire code. Overall, this is in regards to instance like the Marshall Fire and them trying to attempt to stop us from having a Marshall Fire in our own backyard. Overall, I'm not a huge proponent of being told you have to do this. A great example of this is my house was built in the 1970s. So, and it's built of cedar clapboard. If this ordinance, or when this comes into play, if I have to repair my house, I've got to go from cedar clapboard to cement fiber clapboard, is an example of a difference that it would require. Overall, it's a good thing. I'm not a big fan of being told what to do and how we're going to do it, but I do think with the Insurance Association and the firefighters getting together and building this together for a statewide fire code was well intended, though.
I agree, it was well intended. Did you find it?
I did. This is under Section 4 of the law, Safety Clause. The General Assembly hereby finds and determines and declares that this act is necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, or safety.
So when you go to the very, very end of a bill that's being proposed, if you see the safety clause being put on there, your home rule at that point doesn't matter. And there's some home rule cities that are trying to sue the state over some of this because that is not the way the Constitution reads in the Constitution of the state of Colorado. But the bigger cities are going to have to do the battle because we can't afford to do it. And I believe it's Aurora, I can't remember who is doing some lawsuits right now against the state just for this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, we're through with public comment time, so just, okay. Councilmember Rick?
So Chief, let me make sure I understand this.
Sir.
If we vote yes and we approve this ordinance, we have the option to make changes to the map and changes to our code later on.
Yes, sir, that's the way I read the statute.
But if we don't approve this, then we're stuck with the way the map is as the state has written it.
If we don't approve this and adopt it locally, I think the result of that is you don't approve it and we don't adopt it locally. I think if you decided to come back, say 6 months from now, and we go through this again and then adopt it, the WRC itself is not likely to change at that point, and I think we would still have the right to also create our own code and our own map at that time.
But the state could come down and say, too bad, so sad, and then Chris would have to go to court to try and allow us to do that.
I think that's a potentiality.
Okay. My general take on it is once you go to the court, you never know what decision the court's going to give you. So if I can avoid going to court by passing this tonight, I'm feeling that's kind of where I'm at.
And I appreciate that.
I'm looking out for you, brother.
Gordon, as you've many times said, you're not an attorney, so I don't want to see you going to court, okay?
I don't want to.
Councilmember Verhoff.
Thank you. One last little bit on this. If we were to have a structure fire in Fountain, what is the amount of engines it would require to support in order to get that one single structure fire under control?
If you're talking about a residential structure fire, that would be, say, the 1,500 to 2,700 square foot range, NFPA recommends that a minimum of 16 firefighters assemble on first response to handle all of the fireground activities that are required to take place in the first several minutes after arriving at a working structure fire. So I would offer that as an answer, 16 minimum personnel. Your question was how many fire engines are going to respond, and my answer to that would be it depends. It depends on how many fire engines and ambulances we have in service within the city of Fountain, meaning how many of those aren't already committed to other calls. How many units are available to come from our mutual aid partners, Security Fire Protection District, Hanover, and Fort Carson, and Strathmore Hills Fire Protection District. So I would be probably not representing truthful if I gave you a hard number on the engine on the number of engines, because I don't know. That could be a moving target day to day.
And I did mean personnel as well, so thank you for that addition. In that, so if we did have a wildfire instance, it would take 2 structure fires to more or less max out all of our firefighting resources within Fountain. Is that correct?
Depending on the severity of the structure fire, let me make sure I understand what you're asking. 2 structure fires would completely tax us. I would submit that anything more than 1 would stretch us to the point where we would absolutely have to have help coming in from multiple agencies. Again, depending on the scenario, because there's a million different ways that a house can burn and many different levels of involvement within a house once it catches fire. So again, that's a hard answer to qualify, but I would quantify and qualify, but I would say anything beyond one solid working structure fire would be stretched.
And then the last piece of this, if hypothetically, if we had a wildfire come into Fountain, and one of those, let's say it ran down 5 homes, that we had five homes on fire.
Mr. Verhoff, I'm going to drag you back. Maybe that's a conversation you guys can have later, but I'd like to drag you back to the ordinance that we're trying to pass tonight. I understand that, but your questions seem to be getting a little far afield, so if you could wrap up your question, please.
Absolutely. The ending question is, if we had some of the houses fortified with the code, how much of a difference would it make?
You want to take that?
So let's just keep in mind that this, the code as it is written is to assist with that fire being able to take hold of a structure. If we have a fire that is moving through the city or moving through any urban or wildland urban interface throughout the state area, and I'll speak broadly to this, this does not necessarily mean that this structure will not burn. There are many factors that go into this and preventing a structure from burning. The other side of it could be is to truly have what they would designate as a fire-safe or fire-wise community. It is based on not just a single home or single structure. It is based on that structure, the structures around it, and moving out in those concentric circles. Because if you have these neighborhoods that are built and we have one home that didn't need any work and is still in that older model, if that house catches, that now brings a completely different fire model to this incident. And then because it's generating more heat for longer time sitting in that singular location versus a wildfire that kind of consumes fuel and moves, we can have that static fuel of that single structure now preheating all those other structures next to it and spreading that way also. It's not just going to say that just because we have these structural components in place that are fire resistive, they're not fireproof. So it extends the potential of a fire starting in these homes with these newer materials. It extends that time that for a fire to take hold. It does not mean that a fire will not consume the structure, because that's the reality of it is, if you get things hot enough, everything will burn. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have another question? Okay. Okay. Now y'all can take this for what it's worth. This is AI. I'm putting that right out there. Question was put into AI. What are the consequences of the city not adopting the huh?
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, key consequences of non-adoption could include, because this is AI. Let's see, loss of funding. Governor Polis has signaled that local governments failing to comply with new state mandates, including housing and safety regulations, risk losing state grant money with at least $100 million annually at stake across various state mandates. Increased insurance costs and denials. The failure to adopt these standards, which are designated to increase community resilience, is likely to reduce the availability and affordability of homeowners insurance if you don't adopt them. And then elevated safety risks, which I think Councilmember Verhoff was kind of referring to. And then administrative and enforcement challenges. As if a local government fails to adopt the code, they may face difficulties in managing development in high-risk areas and may ultimately have to request support from the state's division to enforce these standards. So, good summary. Fairly good, because I've read the law a few times too, and especially when we were kind of fighting against it. It's once again the state trying to determine that a one-size-fits-all code is good for the state, and it is not. Each community needs to come up with their own standards and for what works in their community. And you're looking like you're going to hit your button. Oh, no?
No,
Okay.
I'm waiting.
All right. So what would council, what would council like, I know what you want to do with it, but what do we need to do with ordinance 1820? Councilmember Hersberg.
Move to approve ordinance 1820 on first reading.
Councilmember Ruffinock.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation on this? Seeing none, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Had to force her finger out there. All righty. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the good conversation. You know, these are the difficult decisions that you have to make up here some weeks. Okay, that takes us on to item 9C, Resolution 26-014, a resolution amending the appropriation of the fiscal year FY 2026 budgeted funds. I hope this is a bit easier.
Hopefully it should be. Pretty straightforward.
All
So,
right. Thank
good
you,
evening, Mayor and council members. I am here tonight because the City Council adopted the budget for this year for fiscal year 2026 on November 18th of last year. And since then, city personnel have identified additional necessary expenditures and some revenues corresponding with some of those expenditures that were not included in the original 2026 budget when it was created. Additionally, final numbers for 2025 capital expenditures were not available until the beginning of this month, just due to timing of payment of invoices for last year's expenses. And so staff is recommending a carry forward of those capital projects from 2025 budgets that were not spent and those projects that were not completed and are now anticipated to be continued or completed in 2026. This affects the general funds, the conservation trust funds, water, electric, streets resurfacing, and transportation funds, although a lot of those funds are very minor. And these supplemental budget requests and the carry forward processes are standard practices and also best practices by governmental accounting standards to ensure that only the items that are appropriated by you are spent during a budget year. So with that, I will go into, and I apologize, some of these are kind of small. I tried to make them bigger, but it's so hard to get the justification and the numbers and everything in there. So this first one on Exhibit A, this is the actual supplemental request. These are not the carry forwards. That'll be on Exhibit B. And the biggest part of this on the revenue and the expenditure side has to do with the microtransit IGZA that was not approved until the very end of last year, so we could not include it in the original budget. So you'll see there's 2.9, almost $3 million in revenue from this microtransit IGZA. And then there in the middle, I don't know if I can get the clicker to work here. This totals about $124,000. These are the additional supplemental requests that are not included in the microtransit IGZA. And those, the two biggest ones there are $65,000 to continue the Prost master plan, which that is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces and Trails master plan that Gordy has been working on since last year. And then $30,000 to complete the splash pad expansion that we had already approved as part of the 2026 budget. Unfortunately, the costs for that project have increased significantly by about $50,000. So in working with Gordy, we were able to identify hopefully $30,000 coming out of the general fund, which we could use the parks fund balance for should council so wish. And then the additional $20,000 you'll see on the next slide out of Conservation Trust. Below that, these are all of the expenses here. This totals about $2.73 million. These are all of the expenditures associated with that microtransit IGZA. And all of that includes some software and the necessary equipment for those new vehicles, the actual lease payments for the vehicles that we have recently received delivery on earlier this year, about $1.9 million in salaries and benefits for the personnel for that IGZA, and then additionally some consulting fees and vehicle maintenance costs. So in all, the total for the general fund supplemental is about $2.8 million. Going on to the next one, you've got the Conservation Trust, which is that additional $20,000 for the splash pad expansion. And then additionally, there is the Water Fund has about almost $33,000 for some building repairs at customer service across the street, as well as some design work for the Southwest Tank Rehab. And then the Electric Fund is also $32,000, and that is the shared cost at a 70-30 split with water for the building repairs to customer service across the street. Exhibit B here, this is the actual carry forwards. These are only capital projects that were approved in prior years that are requesting to be carried forward into this 2026 budget year. There's no operational expenditures here. And I just want to point out a couple of the really big ones here. This, oops, I apologize, wrong button. There's $1.4 million here, which is the Link Road rebuild. And out of that, we have actually been carrying forward a couple of years now from 24, 25, and we budgeted for 26. to try and build up the city match for this, because this is also going to be grant funded. So we're trying to carry forward now that this design has actually started. Once we get into construction, that way we already have our pot built up for our city match for this project. In addition, you've got $382,000 here, which needs to be carried forward to continue the restroom replacement at Aga Park. And then the other big one is $319,000 here at the bottom, and that is for the replacement of this fountain here out front of City Hall. And I do apologize, there was a typo when I created this comment for the justification of the fountain. This is actually a FEMA grant that we received to replace the fountain out front here. It's not due to PPRBD, and we will actually be receiving revenues from that once we spend these monies to replace this fountain out front. And so the reason this needs to be carried forward is just because the design selection was not completed for this fountain until February of this year. And
so we don't need a snow load for a fountain?
No, we don't need the snow load for a fountain. So I apologize for the typo there. And then in Conservation Trust, we have $110,000 down here, and this is for a boom bucket truck that they had asked for last year that they will be sharing with streets, and this is so streets and parks can do some tree clearance in the right-of-ways and in the parks. And we just, unfortunately, there was a lot of delays. Originally, we were trying to buy one from the electric department, and there was a lot of delays with that purchase, so we need to carry that forward. And then moving into streets resurfacing, Council approved in October of last year $91,000 to work on the quiet zone, and that needs to, $52,000 of that needs to be carried forward because it could not be completed last year. The transportation fund has $147,000 for a vehicle that could not be purchased last year due to a Dodge recall on those vehicles, and so now we're trying to find an alternative to that. And then in the water fund, we've got a couple of capital projects. The biggest one being $642,000 for the Fountain Reservoir, which has been a multi-year ongoing project. And then in the electric fund, $3.5 million for the new Riverbend substation, which is also a multi-year ongoing project. So with that, I will open it up to questions from council.
I know we're not doing the exit till the next item. However, Mr. Trilch, if you can grab a microphone, please let's assure everybody that the exit project is self-supporting and that is not monies coming out of our general fund. If you could just take a second and explain that real quick before we vote on this.
Okay, I apologize, Mayor. You want me to explain the transit expenses here?
Yes, please.
Okay. So these are the associated expenses with the new microtransit IGSA that we signed in at the end of September of last year. We've been in the process of implementing that IGSA and expect that we would begin providing services in the, about the May-June timeframe. And so these were part of our initial proposal that we gave to Fort Carson. And with the agreement now in place, these are also the expenses that Fort Carson agrees to pay Fort Fountain for the provision of the service. So everything you see here, all these expenses will be fully reimbursed by Fort Carson. And then as well, we have an 11% administrative and management fee assessed on this IGSA. So we would, if you look in the revenue column, you'll see that once the services are provided and we assess all the additional fees, we anticipate receiving about $280,000 in residual revenue by providing this microtransit service to Fort Carson. So it's 100% paid for. Everything you see here, the vehicles, the employees, the communications equipment, the contracts, all funded and paid for by Fort Carson through the agreement. And then we end up with a residual revenue that goes into the city's general fund for city council to utilize in accordance with the IGSA policy that you established a couple meetings ago.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
Of course.
Councilmember Rick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Shauna, I'm going to go off topic a little bit. Last 3 months, have our revenues been increasing, decreasing, or flat?
We've actually been pretty flat, which is actually really good considering the economy. I know there's been some questions swirling in the economy, and because we budget so conservatively, when we do these things, we actually are in a good place, and our revenues have been, they're not up, but they are fairly stable.
Thank you. That's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Always good to know. Councilmember Hertzberg.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Shauna, I know that we talked a little bit about the IGSAs having their own like cost centers, general ledgers. So in future budgets, will they have their own categories as opposed to being represented as a part of the general fund?
That is correct. And we actually implemented that and started that with this year, with 2026. We have the Strategic Partnerships Cost Center, and we have some very specific lines within there that are dedicated just to IGSA. And so we will actually see that even this year. And so going into 27 and 28, we can expand on those lines further if we need to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Verhoff.
Expanding on Councilmember Hertzberg's question, why wasn't it included in this supplemental?
In the supplemental or the original budget?
In the supplemental, for the separation between it being the general fund and being its own cost center?
It is, because it is its own cost center within the general fund. The general fund houses about 18 different cost centers, and so it's all part of the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further questions from any council members up here? All right, are there any questions from anyone in the audience about the supplemental budget? We must have done a really good job, Shauna.
I'll take it. Thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back up here. What would council like to do with Resolution 26-014? Councilmember Geek.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 26014.
Okay, we have a motion, Councilmember Hertzberg.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, one no. Councilmember Verhoff voting no, motion carried.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, item 9D, Resolution 26-015, a resolution to approve an intergovernment support agreement between the City of Fountain and the United States Army.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm John Trilch, the Assistant City Manager, and speaking of IGSAs, coming to you tonight with a resolution to consider and approve for what would become our 5th intergovernmental service agreement with Fort Carson. So this IGSA, about a year ago, Fort Carson approached us and said that they had the need for biohazard remediation services. They do not have a mechanism there at Fort Carson to provide that type of service on post when they have to deal with a tough issue. As the reality of what occurs in our world sometimes, there are tough scenarios, and Fort Carson has to deal with those, and they have to clean that up, they have to recover, and they have to move forward with their mission of defending our nation. So they approached us and asked if we could help. We do provide a similar type of service, so I mean through our police department and others where we have used biohazard remediation services, and so we began negotiating this IGSA with them. We've done a request for proposal, and we have a couple of good companies, some we've worked with for many years here that provide this service, and developed a structure and agreement, draft agreement with Fort Carson that would enable us to deliver this service if they needed it. What's different from other IGSAs when I usually come to you at this point with a resolution is that the Army has approved the document on their side, and in many cases, the garrison commanders even signed it. And so I come to you and ask for a resolution and mayor's signature, and then it's in effect. In this case, this IGSA is still with the Fort Carson's higher headquarters, Installation Management Command, still pending. But Fort Carson requested that I come to you this evening in anticipation that it's going to be approved and get the council approval, particularly because of our calendar and with the meeting next week and then not being seen again for about another month. They did not want to delay. They're very actually eager to get this agreement into place. And so honoring that request, I come to you this evening to consider what is a final draft of this IGSA agreement. If you consider the resolution, you would approve the mayor to sign the final version once we get it from the Army. If there are any substantive changes, you'll note in the resolution, I'll come back to you again if it's different. I do not anticipate it will be so. And once they have approved that, their garrison commander will sign it and it will be in effect. And then we will award the supporting contracts and be ready to provide services to Fort Carson. We think that that could occur as soon as next week. It's imminent on their side. So subject to your questions, I do recommend that you consider this resolution and approval of this 5th intergovernmental support agreement, which I would also note and confirmed this is the first of its kind in the U.S. Army. So it is another first for the city of Fountain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All righty. Okay, council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Verhoff?
Thank you for bringing this before council, John, and this is such an important service that we provide to those service members, especially when they are dealing with a situation that could be represented by this. So I really appreciate it, and I'm very thankful that we are supporting Fort Carson in this way.
Okay, thank you. Joni, we're seeing a little typo up here, so when I get the actual resolution to sign, it'll have the number on it, because it just says 26-XXX. On the actual agreement. Okay. It's moving so fast, it's hard to keep up with it all. All right, any questions from anyone in the audience on this? Thank you very much. Yeah. You know, and it might not just be for the worst day they have over there. It could be mold in a home, variety of things, hoarding.
Yeah, that's
variety of
correct.
things
We
that
wrote it
can-
very,
yeah.
very broad for just about any type of situation like that that would require that specialized cleaning and remediation service.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Ott?
I'm sorry, I have one question. But for 10 years, we have no option to increase or change the price of our services. Is that correct?
No, we have flexibility in the agreement. We coordinate virtually everything with Fort Carson in the way that we implement these. And so,
See the next sentence below it?
yeah, we meet quarterly to talk about actual adjustments to the service. And the city does have the option at any time, if you wanted to withdraw the agreement, you could do that.
Understood. It is the base that will remain the same. I apologize.
That's okay. It's a lot of stuff.
It's so much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions from anybody up here? Seeing none, what would council like to do with Resolution 26-015? Councilmember Verhoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move Resolution 26-015.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Hertzberg.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further deliberations on the motion? Seeing none, please vote.
Seven yes, motion carried.
All right, that takes us on to item 10, City Council Agenda Requests. City Council shall use this time to request any items for future consideration. Anyone to my right have any agenda requests? Anyone to my left? Okay, seeing none, that takes us on to item 11, announcement of an executive session. Madam Clerk, do we have an executive session
No,
tonight?
ma'am.